Joe Biden established himself as a very flexible politician when it came to his positions on important issues. His lack of honesty and political integrity were established early in his career, as was his willingness to use his office for personal gain and vengeance. However, despite Biden's long track record of failures, to be fair, he did have a few brief moments of diplomatic brilliance, where he actually did his job on behalf of the nation, if not the world in general. What were some of Biden's successes in the Senate? How did he transform from a war hawk to a passive dove, and why? What professional and personal decisions did he make that harmed the nation? How did scandal begin to plague his career? Hello, I'm Colin Heaton, military veteran, historian, author, and welcome to this episode of Forgotten History. Before the start of the Yugoslav Civil War, as tensions were increasing, Biden held a tense 3-hour meeting with Serbian leader Slobodan Milosevic in April 1993. Again, to his credit, Biden worked on several versions of legislative language urging the U.S. toward greater involvement. Biden has rightly considered his role in the Balkans crisis as his proudest moment in public life regarding foreign policy. In 1999, during the Kosovo War, Biden supported the 1999 NATO bombings, and he, with Senator John McCain, co-sponsored the McCain-Biden-Kosovo resolution, which called on Clinton to use all necessary force, including ground troops, to confront Milosevic over Yugoslav actions toward ethnic Albanians in Kosovo. Biden was also a strong supporter of the war in Afghanistan, saying, "Whatever it takes, we should do it." As head of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, he said in 2002 that Iraqi President Saddam Hussein was a threat to national security and there was no other option than to eliminate that threat. In October 2002, as one of the most vocal hawks on Capitol Hill, he voted in favor of the authorization for use of military force against Iraq, approving the U.S. and coalition force invasion. By late 2006, Biden's stance had completely reversed, and he changed his previous opinions. He opposed the troop surge of 2007, saying that General David Petraeus was dead flat wrong in believing the surge could work, and Biden was wrong, the surge worked. Instead, Biden believing that dividing Iraq into 3 separate states, separating the factions, was a great idea, giving Kurds, Shiites, and Sunnis their own regions. Unfortunately, he failed to consult with Iran, Turkey, and Iraq. In September 2007, a non-binding resolution endorsing the plan passed the Senate, but the idea failed to gain traction in the House of Representatives. To Biden's great credit, he did call for American intervention to end the genocide in Darfur, but he also spoke out against President George W. Bush's handling of the Iraq War, claiming that he had been opposed all along. Others, like John Kerry and Hillary Clinton, also altered their previous positions, even claiming they never supported the war. During the 2000s, Biden sponsored bankruptcy legislation sought by credit card issuers, and this made sense, as Biden was a major benefactor from the banks issuing those cards, most based in Delaware. They donated to his campaigns. Clinton had vetoed the bill in 2000, but it passed in 2005 during the George W. Bush administration as the Bankruptcy Abuse Prevention and Consumer Protection Act, with Biden being one of only 18 Democrats to vote for it, while leading Democrats and consumer rights organizations opposed it. This would set in motion the financial meltdown in 2007 and 2008. Biden also strongly supported increasing Amtrak funding by taxpayers because that program never made a profit, and like the U.S. Postal Service, was always in the red. He opposed privatizing Amtrak, which would have made sense as the private sector always manages a business better than the federal government. In 2007, Biden decided to run for the U.S. presidency again, but Biden's campaign could not compete in the primary challenges against the name recognition and momentum of fellow Senators Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama, and after receiving less than 1% of the vote in the crucial Iowa caucuses, Biden dropped out of the race. Biden was selected by Obama to be his vice presidential running mate, as it was believed that he could help the Obama campaign communicate its message of economic recovery to the blue-collar voters crucial to swing states like Ohio and Pennsylvania. On November 2, 2008, the Obama and Biden ticket defeated Republicans Arizona Senator John McCain and Alaska Governor Sarah Palin. On January 20, 2009, Obama was sworn in as the 44th U.S. president, and Biden became the 47th vice president. During this period, Biden's financial limitations manifested, along with the criminal behavior of then-Democrat Representative Barney Frank from Massachusetts. Frank had oversight of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac and followed the Obama policy of giving home loans to underprivileged Americans, in essence, those who could not afford them. Many of these owners, unable to pay for the mortgages, defaulted, and the banks had to recover those losses, which depleted cash reserves for other investments. Barney Frank lied to Congress and the American people during the crisis period from 2006 to 2008. Housing prices took a plunge even greater than the price drop during the Great Depression, and new construction ground to a halt, as the leading institutions were going bankrupt, and new loans could not be secured by builders, and refinancing existing loans was almost impossible. In fact, that very discussion came to a head in 2009 when Frank was on Fox News Channel's The O'Reilly Factor, when Bill O'Reilly called Frank out for the lies, deception, and cover-ups. It was proven that, even while Frank and Biden, among others, touted the solvency of the home lending institutions, they were secretly selling their stocks to cash in before the whole house of cards collapsed. They saw it coming and did not tell the American people. In fact, they did just the opposite. The crisis was in essence created by Obama, Biden, Frank, and others with limited intellect and banking knowledge, which led to the Great Recession, and millions of working-class Americans, the very people the Democrats claimed to represent, lost everything from 401ks to homes and to their jobs. 2 years after the recession ended, unemployment was still above 9%, retirement plans evaporated, and Obama and Biden secured taxpayer bailouts for the banks and savings and loans that made those risky loans, most to unqualified homebuyers who would not have qualified due to income and credit ratings. The major CEOs, CFOs, and others who ran these lending institutions were given golden financial parachute bailouts, so massive their feet would never touch the ground. They were not held liable for fiscal mismanagement, lying to the shareholders, the American public, and keeping separate books for presentation to auditors. The shareholders and investors who lost all their money were left to wither on the vine, but they took care of their rich Democrat friends. But many Republicans were also involved, such as President George H. Bush Jr., who allowed this to happen, so to be fair, he also did nothing. That bailout of the wealthy manifested later when they reciprocated by funding Democrat candidates in the next midterm election, as well as Obama Biden for their re-election for the second term. In March 2008, insider investors like Barney Frank and others in the know, all liberals and a few Republicans, sold off their investment shares in the bank Bear Stearns because it contained too many of the questionable and toxic assets. Bear Stearns approached J.P. Morgan Chase for a bailout, but the Fed had to sweeten the deal with a $30 billion guarantee using taxpayer money. The situation on Wall Street rapidly deteriorated throughout the summer of 2008. Congress authorized the Treasury Secretary to take over the mortgage companies Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, which Barney Frank oversaw and ran into the ground, and it cost $187 billion. Remember, Frank, Biden, and other liberals, as well as some Republicans, sold out before the crash. They had insider information. On September 16, 2008, the Fed loaned another $85 billion to AIG as a bailout, although the average citizen lost everything. On September 17, 2008, the crisis created a run on money market funds where companies parked excess cash to earn interest on it overnight, and banks then used those funds to make short-term loans. During the run, companies moved a record $172 billion out of their money market accounts into even safer U.S. Treasury bonds. Many would call that insider trading. On September 20, 2008, Treasury Secretary Henry Paulson and Fed Chair Ben Bernanke submitted a $700 billion bailout package to Congress. This response helped stop the run, but Republicans blocked the bill for 2 weeks because they didn't want to bail out banks. They only approved the bill on October 1, 2008, after global stock markets almost collapsed. Welcome to Bidenomics. Another factor of interest was that Biden had worked with the Federal Reserve and other members of the government to alter the unemployment numbers so that the administration looked better. In October and November, the Fed and Treasury restructured the bailout, bringing the total amount to $182 billion. By 2012, the government made $22.7 billion profit when the Treasury sold its last AIG shares. But those average Americans who lost their retirement investments never saw one dime. When they calculated unemployment, they never counted those discouraged workers who had given up looking for a job and dropped out of the workforce. Likewise, in order to appear better politically, the Obama-Biden administration began counting part-time and temporary employment into the job numbers. Biden personally led the charge to perform damage control after the Affordable Care Act passed in the dark of night without a single Republican vote in support of it. The Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act was signed into law on March 23, 2010. The law mandated that businesses with more than 50 full-time employees under the new law had to provide exhaustive and costly coverage to those workers. The end result was that companies then had to make hard choices. Some downsized their workforce below 50 workers, some made their full-time workers part-time, while some companies simply moved their businesses overseas, many to China, Vietnam, Cambodia, and Europe, for cheaper operating expenses to escape the unaffordable insurance requirements. Biden actively supported the ACA, known as Obamacare, and the lies that were told to the public were exposed when millions of Americans lost their existing health care plans if they did not conform to the much more expensive ACA requirements. Longtime patients lost their doctors, which they were told would not happen, and many doctors in private practice, seeing that Medicare payments would not cover their operating expenses, simply retired from the practice of medicine. Simply put, it was a bad law that crippled the economy across the board, a true result of a socialist-inspired policy mandate, which Joe Biden totally supported. Obama and Biden claimed that it was not a tax, but in fact it was, and when challenged to the Supreme Court, the justices ruled it was legal because it is a tax and Congress can make tax laws. But guess who lobbied Biden and other Democrats to get the law passed? That's right, the major insurance companies, because they believed that they would make more money since the government was covering the bill. And with the mandatory tax imposed for those who did not buy it, and the high cost of coverage that locked it in, it was a win for everybody. Those people who lost full-time working status in many cases took second part-time jobs, which were continuously added to the Obama-Biden unemployment figures, providing a false impression of higher employment in the country. While Biden mostly served in the role of behind-the-scenes advisor to Obama, he was very active in formulating federal policies relating to the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. Also, to Biden's credit, it should be mentioned that he helped bring the new Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty between the United States and the Russian Federation to life in 2010. In October 2015, Biden announced that he would not seek the 2016 Democratic nomination after the death of his son, Beau. Obama presented Biden with the Presidential Medal of Freedom on January 12, 2017 in a surprise ceremony at the White House. However, there were many things coming back to haunt Biden. Also in 2017, Biden wrote a memoir, Promise Me Dad, and went on a book tour. By 2019, he and his wife reported that they had earned over $15 million since the end of his vice presidency from speaking engagements and book sales. However, Biden, the man who claimed to be the poorest man in Congress, paid millions of dollars in cash for several homes, including a beach house in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware. Biden's income-to-debt ratio did not match IRS records, nor did Hunter's. More on that in Part 3. More allegations of sexual misconduct continued to follow Biden. Lucy Flores, a former Nevada State Assemblywoman, came forward saying that Biden inappropriately kissed her at a campaign event, and a former congressional aide named Amy Lapos spoke of how Biden once made her uncomfortable at a fundraiser. Between March and April 2019, 8 women accused Biden of inappropriate physical contact. The most credible allegation of sexual assault came from a former aide named Tara Reid. She had reported the event and filed a formal complaint to the Ethics Committee through proper channels, informed her family and friends, and her mother, Jeanette Altemus, called the popular talk show Larry King Live in 1993 to talk with King. The title of the program that day was Washington, the Cruelest City on Earth, and one of the guests was Lois Romano, who at the time worked as a journalist for the Washington Post. The entire event was laid out on national TV. Despite the scandals, Biden announced that he was running for president in 2020 on April 25, 2019, and he was heavily criticized for his longtime support of the Hyde Amendment, the federal law that bans federal funding for abortions. As he was running for president due to liberal pressure, he reversed his position on Hyde, as well as his many previous positions on gay marriage, gays in the military, etc. He always chose the position that gave him political lift. In essence, he has always been a fraud, never having a strong moral position that could not be swayed for personal or political advantage. What really brought interest into Biden's family finances was the first debate between Trump and Biden. Biden denied that his family had made any money from China or that he had ever spoken to his son Hunter or anyone in his family about their foreign business interests. Trump knew that it was all a lie, as he had the information and people had come forward, such as retired U.S. Navy Lieutenant Tony Bobulinski, the CEO of Sinohawk Holdings. He provided electronic, written, and verified whistleblower testimony, refuting all the claims made by both Hunter and Joe Biden, and all of Bobulinski's assertions proved to be 100% accurate. In September 2019, it was revealed that President Trump had inquired into the Ukrainian government investigating Biden and his son Hunter. This was the result of Biden blackmailing the president of Ukraine, threatening to withhold $1 billion in U.S. aid unless the country's prosecutor general at the time was fired. The investigation was into Burisma Holdings and their illegal activities in trying to corner the energy market, and why Hunter Biden, without any business, energy, or serious finance experience, no knowledge of the Ukraine, as well as a documented history of drug addiction, was involved. Trump wanted answers. In a September 24th speech, Biden called Trump's actions an abuse of power and said he would support impeachment if Trump did not cooperate with Congress. The stupidity of that scenario was that House Speaker Nancy Pelosi ignited impeachment proceedings that same day without even having an inquiry. The impeachment proved to be a farce when the transcript of the call was made public, proving that Trump had in fact only inquired as to the status of the investigation, given the evidence that the Bidens were making millions from Burisma in undeclared, unearned, and untaxed income. Quickly getting to work, President Biden signed a series of executive orders over his first few days in office, 17 being signed the first day. He reversed the successful policies initiated by Trump and opened the southern border in violation of federal law and his oath of office. Pandering to his New Green Deal Democrats, Biden killed the pipelines, stopped giving new leases to drill, restricted land so that current leases could not be used, and pushed electric vehicles, for which all the major components are made in China, and the materials are mined by slave labor in Africa, mostly children. In his first 2 weeks in office, Biden signed more executive orders than any other president since Franklin D. Roosevelt had in their first month in office, and every one of them has damaged the country. Biden also removed the Remain in Mexico policy, which prevented the illegals from around the world from crossing the border, with the assistance of the Mexican government, who had also secured their southern border with Guatemala. Biden agreed to re-enter the United States in the climate-related Paris Agreement, and he overturned the ban that prevented entry for Muslims coming from terrorist-supporting nations. Biden campaigned and then pulled funding for the completion of the wall along the Mexican border. He then began having the border wall cut. open to allow more illegals and criminals to enter the country. As we go into Part 3, we will see how Biden undermined national security, sold access and influence, violating his oath of office from senator through president, stole highly classified material, lied to the American people regarding his family's crime spree, and weakened the country's position on the world stage, which is explained by the Biden crime family's sudden wealth and political decisions that only benefited our enemies. Thanks for watching today's episode of Forgotten History. If you like this episode, please consider becoming a channel member or joining our Patreon page. This would help us offset the ever-increasing cost of production. As always, please like, share, and comment. And if you have any show ideas, please contact us, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. Until next time.